Tensions are intensifying between the UK and Russia over the investigation into the poisoning of a former Russian spy. British Prime Minister Theresa May says it is highly likely that Moscow was behind the attack on Sergei Skripal and his daughter. They were poisoned by a nerve agent more than a week ago and remain critically ill. May is demanding that Moscow give an explanation or face retaliation. Russia's foreign ministry is dismissing the allegations as a circus show in the British Parliament. In the House of Commons, May explained why she's pointing the finger at Russia.
It is now clear that Mr. Skripal and his daughter were poisoned with a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. This is part of a group of nerve agents known as Novichok. Based on the positive identification of this chemical agent by world-leading experts at the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory at Porton Down, our knowledge that Russia has previously produced this agent and would still be capable of doing so, Russia's record of conducting state-sponsored assassinations, and our assessment that Russia views some defectors as legitimate targets for assassinations, the government has concluded that it is highly likely that Russia was responsible for the act against Sergei and Yulia Skripal.
Chemical weapons specialist Jean-François Legault joins us now from Ottawa. Jean-François, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Novichok, what exactly is that?
Novichok's agents were developed in the 70s and 80s by the former Soviet Union, and they were designed mainly to defeat the current standard NATO chemical detection systems, as well as protective equipment. And one particularities of the Novichok agents is they were to be used as a very ultra-fine powder, and that's what makes it very specific to its use.
What do you make of the scenes that we've seen in Salisbury with, pubs and restaurants being closed down, people being told to, clean their clothes? How long does this stuff sort of hang around?
Well, the persistency of the agent may vary from days to days if it's to be a liquid or vapor. In this particular case, and again, assuming it's a Novichok agent, because it's most likely a solid form, it can stay there for quite a few days. That's why every protective systems or cleanup procedures have to be considered.
Mr. Skripal and his daughter were found on a park bench in distress, sort of almost losing consciousness. What exactly does Novichok do to a person?
So those agents are the same particularities of that of nerve agents. So basically, as we've seen in the case of Sarin in Syria or VX in the case of the half-brother of Kim Jong-il, nerve agents would basically interfere with the central nervous system. So that would create difficulty in breathing, convulsions, vomiting, and eventually death.
How would someone transport this? I mean, we're talking about public spaces here. This is a very dangerous substance. How does somebody move it around?
So I think that's one of the key questions is basically, well, let's assume that it did come from Russia. I think the people who did commit the act would have to be very careful as to how they handle the agents. But one other particularity of the agents, it's called like a binary agent. So basically taking two substances and mixing them at the right moment to produce the agent. So one assumption is they did carry the two substances in a safe fashion, and when it came time to execute what they were meant to do, they basically mixed the agent and then allowing for the things to happen.
We know that in the last case, Mr. Litvinenko, he was poisoned with polonium in his tea. I mean, what would the delivery system be in this case?
Most likely, I think, for the agent to be effective, it would be by either inhalation. So Mr. Skripal and his daughter would have to either inhale it, or most likely it could have been through ingestion. So something in their food that they would have eaten.
Jean-François Legault, a chemical weapons specialist in Ottawa. Mr. Legault, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.